for watching Numbskull News, and today I'm going to get into my comments a little bit. I'm going to focus. I'm going to focus on a guy. I don't think I've seen him comment before. Actually, a couple people, but one of them I'm kind of going to base the video on, and I'm taking a little cue from a Gold and Blue Dude standard. That whole Get It Gang thing that he did. Now, this isn't Get It Gang. I'm not going to rip him off like that. I'm just going to take a little inspiration for something the man did. I thought he had a good idea with that. So every time I do that, I'll dedicate it to Gold and Blue because that was his idea. But there was another guy in the comments. Another guy I don't think I've seen before. Buckeye in Texas. Yeah. He, for some reason, he got this weird idea in his head that I thought anyone who valued good education was an elitist. I don't believe I've ever said that. I think you kind of misinterpreted things I was trying to say. What I'm saying is I don't care what you're good at, what you're great at, what you're elite at. That's great. Stanford, in Pac-12, they hold themselves in this lofty position as far as education goes. So does the ACC and so does the Big Ten. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you walk around like your shit don't stink, when you're sitting there, oh, we're so much better than you. You're shitty academically, and we're so, we're God's gift. That's where I see elitism. All right. So, you said, since I did that, you're going to call the Big 12 the trailer trash conference. Well, as a Texan in Texas, I think I can speak for most native Texans when I say with that attitude, you can kiss our collective asses and suck our collective dicks with that little statement, and frankly, I don't give two fucking shits whether you like that or not. But what we could really just solve that problem is if you would actually listen to what I'm saying. You don't have to. Most people don't. It's not a problem. You never have to comment again if you don't want to, or you can stick around. That's fine. But if you kick me in the balls, I'm going to kick you back. Just ask your buddy Tar Heel. So, yeah, but since I did that, I'm also going to give Buckeye in Texas a little bit of credit for saying that to Tar Heel, actually, in the comments, that UNC is a little overvalued. And he's right, especially by Tar Heel, who thinks, they're above Michigan as a brand and even on par with Ohio State. And you can kiss my ass with that. I'm sorry, UNC ain't shit compared to those two schools. Just look at what they draw when they play each other, the ratings they get. When's the last time UNC had that kind of rating playing anybody in any sport? Never? You would be right. All right. Well, let's get to this bullshit that I'm going to do here. All right, so this guy, Aloha Nate 2004, new to me. At least I don't recognize the name. But, I appreciate you, Mr. Nate. I'm glad you came, saw the video and, you wanted to comment on it. And I'm going to do the best I can to answer some questions you have. I've already left comments on this, but I just thought it was a good video thing. So screw it. Let's do it. All right, so Mr. Nate says, why should the Big Ten expand if it doesn't bring in additional revenue for the current teams? I understand ESPN may pay for 2 Pac-12 schools, but the current 14 schools don't get additional revenue. Why add anyone? And that is an outstanding question, Mr. Nate. That's why I always say, whenever I'm talking about Big Ten expansion, I did this time too, if. I always throw in the if they expand, because they may very well not expand. Now, the reason I even talk about it, or anyone else does, because all your big media people, your Dennis Dodds, Canzanos, Wilner, go down the list. All of them, if you would poll all of them, most of them would tell you the Big Ten is probably going to expand more westward. Now, most of them would probably tell you that that'll be in 3 to 5 years. It's not going to be anytime soon. That's what they would say. But all of them say they will eventually take, whether it's 2 or 4 more teams from out west, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. So that's why I talk about it. And that's why a lot of other independent creators out there also talk about it, because all your big dog reporters talk about it and they believe it's going to happen. Now, there's a very good chance, I think, that they never do any more expansion westward for the exact reasons you just put out there. So I appreciate the comments so far. Also, why add more Pac 12 schools? Yes, that would help USC and UCLA with travel, but you're increasing the travel for current 14 teams. Well, are you? Not a ton. So let's try to break this down. Okay, let's say just for shits and giggles, just for argument's sake, they're gonna add what everyone thinks they'll add: Oregon and Washington. Okay, so you have Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. So that's 6 home games apiece. That's 24 games. However, uh, at least 2 of those home games are going to be non-conference. So you're really talking 4 games apiece with 4 teams. Because I'm not saying they're going to add 4. I'm saying they'll add 2. So based on that, the math works out to 16 home games of Big Ten schools having to come out to LA, Oregon, and Washington. So you have 14 schools. All right, so every school makes a trip out west to play a game. That's 14 of those 16 games, which means that two of those 14 teams every year are going to have to make 2 trips out west. That's it. All right, so one year you can have Ohio State and Penn State make the 2 trips. The next year it could be Michigan and Michigan State make the 2 trips. The next year it could be Purdue and Northwestern that makes the 2 trips. So you're not really asking a shit ton here. You're talking a trip to LA, maybe 2 trips to LA, maybe a trip to LA and a trip to Eugene, Oregon. It's a 4 or 5 hour flight, not that big a deal. Also, the current 14 teams Olympic sports would then have to make multiple cross country trips. I just don't understand the why. Well, you also have to think that the Olympic sports work differently than football. Football's way, way different. So if you look at track and field, they have a lot of different meets. They have a lot of invitationals, and those are all over the country, all over the place. Different conferences, sometimes schools you never freaking heard of. So the travel's already kind of included when you're talking track and field, when you're talking swimming, when you're talking all that shit. They're going all over the place anyway. So really with the Olympic sports, it doesn't really affect you like you think it would. Now, football, the reason all of a sudden the price difference goes up, because football, you're traveling hundreds of people, not just the players. You're talking coaches, you're talking trainers, medical staff. And beyond that, you're talking the whole fucking band, all right? And cheerleaders, and, it just goes on. You're talking hundreds of people, and it's expensive as shit. And on a chartered flight, oh, that's a ton of cost. And yeah, there may be some travel with, basketball will probably get it the worst. Maybe, because like softball and baseball, and I don't know this on the collegiate level because I don't really follow women's softball or men's baseball collegiately, but I'm assuming, they play multiple games over a course of a couple of days. So it kind of mitigates your travel. And the best way to mitigate your travel as far as football is like leave a day earlier. That way, you don't have so much jet lag because you're going through time zones. And not to mention, a lot of people talk about, Oregon and Washington, it's still really far from LA. And it's like having, it's like multiple islands. It's not just one island or whatever the hell, right? The difference is you're not going through time zones, right? So, I live in Fort Worth. I'll go out to California. I'll go out to San Francisco to visit family. So when I go out there, it's cool, right? Because I take an early flight, leave 6:30 in the morning, and then I get there. It's like 8:30, right? So it's a 3.5 hour flight, but you can shave 2 hours off because you're going all the way to the West Coast. The problem is you have to add those 2 hours on when you come back. That sucks. All right, same 3.5 hour flight, but you leave at 3 in the afternoon, and you're not really, well, I'm not getting here until 8:30, 9 o'clock, and that sucks ass. All right, it felt like you wasted the whole day traveling because of which direction you're going. So if you're just going north and south, you're at least in the same time zone. And really, how far is a flight from LA to Eugene? What is that? 2 hours, 2.5 hours? That's nothing. But if you talk about going to Washington, what is that? Is that 3.5 hours? But that's a true 3.5 hours, right? I mean, you're not losing hours, have to add them on the way back. That's easy. That's way easier travel. That's probably why the Big Ten presidents shut down further expansion. If those same presidents hired the new commissioner, then it seems they would have hired a guy who also believes in no future expansion. They have said nothing, the presidents, about future expansion. I think they had a problem with present expansion from Kevin Warren being 4 teams right now. I think they got a little freaked out. They got some anxiety about it happening right now. They wanted to slow the shit down. They just, they were like, whoa, just hold on. So, but keep in mind, not all the presidents felt that way. There are also presidents that want to add more Western schools. So that's been reported. So you have two camps. You have camp of presidents that are like, whoa, we got to slow this shit down. No more expansion right now. And you got other presidents that were more gun ho, like, yeah, let's add 2 to 4 more teams right now. So to me, it's like there's going to be a meeting in the middle eventually, because Mr. Petiti, he's got a lot of things to do in the Big Ten once he gets going in May. And eventually, they will talk further expansion, and it'll be within the next few months. They'll sit down, have a sit down and talk about it. And I think eventually they'll meet in the middle. That's what I'm guessing. Instead of 4 teams, they'll think, okay, maybe we could pick 2. We really love Stanford. I think that's the dark horse to me, is Stanford, because of the academic profile and where they're at in the Bay Area. And that profile of Stanford is very unique because of the market. I mean, it's the academic profile, but also the market. Not to mention, they've been really good in athletics in the past, talking football and basketball. They're not really there right now. They could get back there. But to finally pay off the thumbnail of this whole damn video, it got me to thinking about, when I was going through all these, and thank y'all so much for commenting. Even the peckerhead that calls himself a Buckeye in Texas, I appreciate it. Rude as you were, I appreciate it. However, it got me to thinking a lot about the Pac-12 TV deal, Big Ten expansion, the whole thing. What if the Big Ten never, and I mean never, goes further out west? What if they don't want 2 more teams? I mean, the hell with 4. What if they don't even want 2? And I mean no time soon. I mean, let's say they just shut, like, nah, dude, we're not into it. I mean, if you're Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal, what do you do at that point? I mean, when the best deal on the table is Apple TV, what do you do? I mean, now I'm told by everybody there's no way in hell those 4 teams would ever join the Big 12. Okay, let's go with that. But we definitely know there's other teams that are interested in it. Now, I think they all 10 would rather stay together, but that comes with caveats. You have to have a deal with enough exposure, enough ESPN, and enough money. So there's criteria for some of these teams to stay, all right, that have interest from the Big 12, but in order for them to stay, they have to have something that checks all the boxes. And they all know the deals that are coming aren't going to check all the boxes if they check any at all. So given that, I mean, and that's from Arizona State, that's from Arizona, that's from Colorado. You know, that's not talking about the Big 4 teams in the Pac-10. You know, I don't think they're even thinking about a TV deal right now. I don't think they give two fucking shits about a TV deal right now. They're all about the Big 10 and trying to make that happen. Now, if it's just made clear it's not going to happen, then they have to sit there and look at a TV deal and a bunch of monstrous shit on their desk like, oh my God, is this it? What? You know, at some point, does Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal say, you know, maybe a damn merger with the Big 12 is the way to go? Maybe it is. And with the Big 12, you know, if all of a sudden they got a call from, you know, let's say the executive committee of the Pac-12, you know, screw Kliavkoff, you know, like we're talking Washington's president and the other two on the line of that executive committee calls and says, you know, it calls Brett Yormark and says, you know, what do you think about a merger? Because everything kind of sucks right now for us, but we all want to stay together. Nobody wants to go, you know, just one or two teams to the Big 12. But if we merged, we can all kind of save face here. Now, in order for that to happen, of course, the Pac-12 would have to be humbled and humbled quite a bit. And I believe we've all been seeing the humbling of this TV deal, which is insane. But we've all been seeing it. But I think the ultimate humbling would be the Big Ten saying, no, we're good. You know, we got our teams. You know, we got our teams. We got 16 teams. We're good. You know, we may come back and review this again in 2030, but for now, you know, we just don't have any interest. That may cause, you know, these Pac-12 presidents to start thinking about that again. Now, Pac-12 fans, who would you rather have as your commissioner? Kliavkoff or Yormark? I think we all know the answer to that one. Now, how would the presidents of the Big 12, how would they look at that? Now, I'm sure that has come up, you know, 10 or so months ago, but I think things were really different then. The Pac-12 was searching for a deal. The Big 12, you know, hadn't made a decision on coming to market yet, probably haven't even thought of it. Brett Yormark was still visiting schools trying to, you know, introduce himself to the conference. So at that point, you know, I don't know how much they were thinking about merging. But this has all been going on for a while now. You know, would the Big 12 presidents, you know, entertain that? Now, some of the good aspects of it, you get Oregon and Washington, Stanford and Cal in the conference. And even though Cal's a hot mess of shit athletically, they are a great educational institute. Now we know Stanford, at least Stanford would have some demands. They're like, look, Big 12, y'all got to up y'all's educational profile. And I'm sure that, you know, universities like TCU and Baylor, West Virginia, maybe they can go out, try to and start the process of becoming an AAU school. They definitely have enough money and they're big enough universities to make that happen. I can see a university like Texas Tech, you know, go after, you know, being a big time research, what is it called, R1 or whatever it is, you know, but kind of getting more elite in the tech aspect of what they do. Yeah, so I could see the Big 12 saying, you know, if they were interested in the merger, saying, okay, you know, that's a reasonable ask from Stanford as far as raising the educational profile of the Big 12. Okay, we can handle that. These schools have enough money and they're enough quality where they can do that. Now, on the flip side, you would be saying, okay, understood, we agree. Stanford and Cal, your athletic programs, they have to mean more than what they currently are to you right now. Stanford's bad. Cal is embarrassing as shit. Like, look, you actually got to hire coaches, ADs, that give a damn. You got to empower these people to actually put together programs that are respectable. You actually have to try to compete. That's the only way this is going to work. It's got to be a two-way street. Now, Big 12 fans, I can tell you right now, they would be very wary of a merger between the Pac-10 and the Big 12, 22-team conference. The reason being is we're like, whoa, we don't want these assholes coming in here running our shit. Because look how they ran their shit into the ground. I mean, who owes Comcast $50 million? Ain't us. Who's getting sued by two ex-employees over some, nefarious type of shit? You are, not us. So I can understand that. But the thing is, in that scenario, those 10 schools would have to have an equal say. But there needs to be an understanding from the get-go. There's a lot of faith and trust in the Brett Yormark. There's things that we're wanting to do. We need you guys to be on board. All right, if something fails, we can revisit something. But we got to be on board. We got to be innovative, not just increasing the brand, but finding new revenue streams and going full bore with it. And you need to be on board with what we're doing. Stuff like Rutger Park, stuff like, pro days at Jerry World, stuff like Mexico City. You got to be able to do those kind of things. You can't just come in here and say, well, that's not the way we did it in the Pac-10. Well, if we merge, you're not the Pac-10 no more. Or whatever you want to name it. But it's not that. There would have to be a lot of talking and meeting, and it have to happen in a pretty short freaking order for that to be able to pull off. But all I'm saying is, if the Pac-12 gets really desperate, I know it doesn't make the Big 12 sound good, but they think a lot of themselves. We all know they think a lot of themselves. They're a bit elitist. But if they get humbled enough, would they come crawling to us saying, hey, what about a merger, guys? Because we're kind of screwed. Well, I think you give it a good look. Because if it can work, and if you can get those Pac-10 presidents to not be dicks and to play ball, be cool, Brett Yormark's got a lot of great ideas. We don't need to be shutting everything down. We know he's not going to be able to do everything he wants to do, because that dude can shotgun some shit at you. Just pow, here's 20 ideas. But so you're going to focus on a few and do those, and focus on a few more and do those. But can they be on board with innovation? Can they be on board with what's going on as far as excitement in the Big 12? If they can do that, if they can humble themselves to do that, and if the schools in the Big 12 can step it up academically, everyone meet in the middle, everyone raise up their games where they're weak, then you could really have something. That's the only reason I made the video, the only reason I entertained this shit. Because a merger between the Big 12 and the Pac-10 would be incredibly strong. You'll have some ass clowns out there that'll say, well, you're just the leftovers anyways, there's 22 of you. 22 teams is a lot of content. A lot of content people want. Like it or not, that's the way it is. And could you imagine Brett Yormark with control of all of that? Building that brand of the first mega conference. Because you don't get mega till you hit 20, bitch. That's the way I see it. You can't be a mega conference unless you hit at least 20. And we would be the first one to get over 20. Probably be the only one to be over 20. But again, I appreciate the comments, even from assholes. I appreciate that. You know what? I even appreciate Tar Heel. He's kind of gotten active on the channel again, commenting and arguing with people. That's what he does. And believe it or not, Tar Heel, I think we're a lot more alike than you want to believe. Maybe your handle, your grasp on the English language is probably a little better than mine. I'll give you that. But I think we approach things the same way. We just come out with different outcomes. All right. We both try to look at what, try to get as much information as we can, look at what everyone's saying, and try to see what conferences and teams are actually doing, and try to deduce what can happen later on. Try to use some logic to it. I think we both do that. I just think you have a bias towards UNC. I have a bias towards the Big 12. And that's where we're always kind of grinding against each other in the comments and such. So, as it turns out, sir, you're just another damn redneck talking sports. Anyway, that's all I got on this crap. I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.